My two youngest sons, 9-year-old Malcolm and 6-year-old William, wake up in the morning and they ask me for a bagel. This is fine. I'll cut a bagel in half and feed both of them. I figured out that when I give them each a whole bagel, I later wind up finding two jagged, half-eaten bagel fossils in the couch cushions, which can be a really painful discovery. I toast the bagel, they say thanks. Actually, in my house, dropping a bagel into a toaster, waiting 40 seconds, and then spreading something on it actually counts as making a bagel. As if I had sowed, reaped, threshed, and ground the flour, shaped it and baked it, made a bagel. My sons think I'm some kind of magician, when really, I'm just the toaster's lovely assistant. The toaster is the magician that presto makes a cold roll vanish, and then presto, a warm bagel materializes out of thin air. And I just stand there looking pretty. I guess I'm kind of like a mathemagician who can turn one bagel into two by cutting it in half. Like, behold, division is actually multiplication. My sister is an Episcopal priest. Right now, she is also conducting a service in New Jersey, and she's performing the miracle of transubstantiation, turning crackers into the body of Christ. I can't do that. But I can transform one bagel into two breakfasts. I can break the body of Christ into a communion, as long as the eaters are very small. Anyway, I toast this thing. Malcolm wants cream cheese. William wants butter. Malcolm won't touch a bagel with butter. To him, that's not a bagel at all. And William feels the same way about cream cheese. It's the same lactose, but these two have a religious level intolerance about it. If Malcolm eats his half and wants more, I point to the stub William didn't finish. And I say, first eat that, then we'll talk. He says, no, that's a William bagel. It's like some kind of treasonous traitor. It's gone over to the other side. It can never come back. It can never be a Malcolm bagel. What's up with these two? Same parents, same house, same crazy hairstyle. We still put them together in the same bathtub, but these little preferences make them feel as if they're completely different. And they demand that their individuality be honored. Each wants something that was intentionally and exclusively made for only him. Which is funny to me, the guy who just cut the same bagel in half. But each side has been transformed, personalized into a one-of-a-kind gift for a unique individual. Some people might hear this and say, well, that's what makes you a good parent. If you're thinking that, it's because you can't read my mind. And hear how many times I think this is ridiculous. It's just food. Eat it so you can get on with your life. I feed my kids because hungry children bother and annoy and interrupt me. So if I want a moment of peace to obsess about whatever I'm obsessing about, usually myself, first, I've got to preemptively silence those interruptions. What these two have in common, the same parents who work to earn the food so that we can work again to prep and serve it, they are both fed by the amber waves of grain and the fruited plain, the heartland of this country. Butter and cream cheese that, for all we know, may have come from the same cow. An abundant wet nurse whose body makes food for her own offspring, but on top of that, think about it, this bovine single mom in Wisconsin is willing to nurse 330 million human Americans. Can you imagine that? You and me, foster siblings, adopted and nurtured by the same cow, whom we've never even met. But she put the cream in my coffee and the milk in your Raisin Bran. The cow is part of some English phrases that are currently fading out of usage. Nobody says holy cow anymore. Apparently, this expression comes from baseball radio announcers. I guess old-time fans huddled by the radios just needed something really big and improbable to envision during a hit that they couldn't see. Like bases loaded, strike one, strike two, holy cow! As if the calfskin ball had come back to life and this super cow had jumped over the moon. Well, holy cow is fading out, as is the expression sacred cow, meaning somebody's personal hobby horse. Come to think of it, nobody says hobby horse much anymore either. Expressions beginning with bull are still around and doing fine. You see, look, you get up in front of a congregation, you tell a joke that's got the word bull in it. Everybody thinks they know where the joke is going. Oh, for goodness sake. It's got to be clean for the kids. But holy cow, sacred cow are both facing extinction, which is interesting because the cow figures in some of humanity's earliest and most enduring symbolism. Cattle were popular subjects for Paleolithic, Stone Age cave painters. These were the millennia before farms and fences, when humans were migratory foragers and cattle were truly free range, leaner and meaner than their modern mutant descendants. They were fearsome beasts, individually formidable, and in a communal stampede, unstoppable. But if you could kill one, it was the biggest party of the year. Our English word carnival still reflects this. It comes from carne, the word for meat, the idea that meat eating used to be something that most people only got to do on the big holidays. The oldest known cave painting in the world is a cow in Borneo that someone etched in red ochre 40,000 years ago. There are also examples painted in the caves of France and other locations in Europe. These caves were not public art galleries. They were deep, dark, dangerous to access. Some archaeologists say that cave etching came from a belief that humans could descend into the womb of the earth and fertilize it with symbolic images so that animals would be born. The earliest known experiment with city building was 9,000 years ago in Anatolia, what we now call Turkey. And this ancient city housed thousands of people in multi-story apartment complexes, and excavators have identified one of its deep inner chambers as a temple. And in this cave-like room, bull skulls with plaster features were affixed to the walls. We don't know why, but it's likely a parallel with earlier traditions of etching cattle in deep caverns. Statues and carvings of cattle are also found in the oldest settlements of the Indus Valley, what we now call India, where a matriarchal metropolis arose 5,000 years ago. This civilization conducted the first known experiments with indoor plumbing. And in numerous carvings in the ruins, we find the heifer and the bull as symbols of fertility and virility. This culture flourished for 2,000 years before it was buried, likely due to invasion from the north. But the cow continues to be venerated in India. The Sanatana Dharma, which we call Hinduism, forbids the slaughter and consumption of beef. And cattle cannot be owned. They are free to wander even the streets of Indian cities, producing milk and oil that play important roles in Hindu rituals. When we think about sacred cattle in ancient religions, one of the first stories to come to mind might be the famous golden calf fiasco in the biblical book of Exodus. When the liberated Hebrews had escaped from Egypt and Moses climbed the mountain to receive the law, the people gathered to demand a God statue that they could pray to for provision as they crossed the dry and dangerous desert. Well, the story ends in disaster. But regardless of crime and punishment, it's interesting to note that when the Hebrews wanted a shape to pray through, the image that came to mind was a sacred cow. There are many other examples of holy cows in religions throughout the Middle East, Europe, and Asia. As an old expression goes, we could keep listing these till the cows come home. There is also cattle's North American cousin, the bison, who plays a significant role in the indigenous spiritualities of the Great Plains. Natives of the Midwest believe that the plains belong to the buffalo herds, and that the buffalo host the human population, providing food, clothing, shelter in the form of leather teepees, and bones to make tools from. And in exchange for this hospitality, humans can conduct religious rituals encouraging rainfall and grass growth that will feed the bison populations in return. Most ancient traces of cattle veneration are mysterious etchings and carvings from ancient cultures whose stories have been lost in the shifting sands of time. Oddly enough, it's the Vikings who preserve one of the oldest known cow myths in print. Norsemen were surly pirate types. Even the word Vik means to pillage. So Viking was a name given by outsiders. When people would say, "Here come the Vikings," it meant, "Here come the pillagers." But the 13th century text known as the Prose Edda contains a story about the beginning of the earth in a place between the realm of fire and the realm of ice. There was a cow called Auhumla who stood licking a large lump of salt. She secreted 4 streams of milk and nursed the frost giant Ymir. And as she licked away at the salt, she found some hairs on her tongue. Looking further, she revealed the head and then the body of Buri, the grandfather of the Norse sky gods. Well, then the story turns pretty Viking. The sky gods kill and dismember the frost giant, making land from his flesh and mountains from his bones, clouds from his brains, oceans from his blood, and the sky from his skull. And then eventually one of the frost giants gets revenge. Loki is adopted by the sky gods, and his trickery triggers the apocalyptic Ragnarok. It's a brutal, nasty story from a culture that basked in bloody violence. The cow is quickly forgotten, which is too bad, because for one shining moment there, it was this cow who had nurtured both of these ancient enemies, feeding the frost giant and freeing the sky god from a block of salt. She is a symbol of maternal warmth, and her generosity is not bounded by either side of this ancient struggle for control. Why all of this enmity between the sky gods and the frost giants anyway? Who knows? Maybe the sky god liked butter and the frost giant liked cream cheese. It's hard today to think of the cow as something sacred, something worthy of reverence. We've spent thousands of years selectively breeding the fattest and stupidest heifers with the slowest and stupidest bulls. Our agricultural science is based on unnatural selection. We've done this to make the cow totally dependent on us. And we have developed a dangerous dependence on beef. Now it turns out cattle flatulence might be more hazardous than fossil fuels, and cheap hamburgers might be more addictive than opium. The industrialization of harvesting milk and meat is horrific. The modern cow is more like a plant than an animal. When we contemplate our modern relationship with cattle, there is a lot to feel bad about. But, spoiler alert, this message is not going to end with me telling you to go cry over spilled milk. It's fascinating to look at how many cultures share a respect for the cow as a symbol of abundance and generosity. It literally generates goodness. A cow can feed creatures as different as calves and humans, as different as Malcolm and William, and can inspire religions as diverse as peaceful Hindus and violent Vikings. There's something universal about the cow. It even seemed, for a moment there, like the cow could make the topic of a really easy Unitarian sermon. Too late. I realized that since we don't all have milk and meat in common, I would need to come up with an ending that had a vegan option. It is never a compliment to call someone or to be called a cow. It is not a symbol of ambition and intellect. It's just a symbol of unquestioning, non-judgmental generosity. But you know, maybe there's some wisdom in that. Thank you.